Hi students, welcome to session 1 of Water, a Precious Resource. Students, you might have heard about this popular saying, Jal hai to kal hai. Means, if you have water, you can think of the future. Now students, you are perhaps aware that 22nd March is celebrated as World Water Day. A school celebrated Water Day and invited posters from the children of your age group. So, there are many posters which are presented on that day. So, what is the message you get from these posters which you see on 22nd March, on World Water Day, and on some others day too, like save energy, every drop counts, you can save water, my best friend is water. So basically, these posters try to narrate that we should use water very nicely or wisely. Students, have you ever felt a shortage of water at home or at school? Well, your parents or teachers must very often be advising you not to waste water. No wonder we celebrate Water Day every year to grab the attention of everybody towards the importance of conserving water. Students, you will be amazed to know that the amount of water recommended by the United States for drinking, washing, cooking and maintaining proper hygiene is a minimum of 50 liters per person per day. And this amount is about 2.5 buckets of water per person per day. And is your family getting at least this much of water? If yes, you should consider yourself fortunate because millions of people in our country do not get enough water. What about your friends and their families then? Well, in some places there is an acute shortage of water. Taps are running dry, long queues of for water. Fights, marches and protests for the demand of water have become a common fight. They have become a common sight, especially during summers. So students, isn't it true that we face acute shortage of water? And then we will be facing, if this continues, if we continue to use water like this. So, I would like to say that water is a natural resource that is vital for both plants and animals and human beings too. Water exists in abundance on our planet Earth. So, however, only a very small fraction of it is fit for human consumption. So let us see that how water is a precious resource and how much water is available on earth actually which we can use. Yes, students, as I said before, that water is a natural resource that is vital for both plants and animals, and it is the most abundant component on earth's surface. Like we know very well that 70 to 75% of Earth's surface is covered by water. So water is the most common liquid on our planet, vital to all life forms. It is in the dispersion medium for all the reactions, biochemical reactions of the living process, and takes part in many of these reactions. Even in our body, as a transport medium, water is very important. So, one might say that water is actually one of the major resource or major source of all the life forms. It is also the major research It is one of the source of the major research laboratory, and in addition most of them use water under extreme conditions such as those leading to superheated or supercooled water. So water has been studied since the antiquity. What is new is that computers, they also allow us to start with the elementary in reactions between molecules, and from them we predict the large-scale properties of water such as its pressure, its temperature, its solubility of salts, its volume, and so forth. So people used to think about water as an infinite resource, and we thought that climate change is also imposing long-term droughts on entire swaths of the earth, that unmined allocations have drained ancient aquifers, and that a lot of the water people have to drink is polluted. So this is yet another necessary change in human beings' relationship with the natural world that must start in the countryside and other burbs with motivated individuals who will commit to doing things differently and educate your neighbors about how it's done and how great it can be made to look. So most of the surface and groundwater on the planet is salty. So basically, most of the water that exists on earth is in the seas and oceans. And sea and ocean water, as we know very well, is highly salty, and hence it is unfit for drinking. Most of the fresh water is frozen in the glaciers and in the polar ice caps, and is thus not readily available. So here you can see a diagrammatic representation of the water on the earth. Now assume that this is the total water on the earth. This is the earth. Now 70 out of this 100%, 97.41% is that of the seas and oceans, the major water bodies. Rest of the 2.59% is of fresh water. Now you can see here we have further divided it into more percentage, being more specific about fresh water. So the second pie chart which you can see is that of fresh water, where groundwater is just 0.592%, and glacier and ice caps, they are 1.954%. Right? So rest of the fresh water remained now is 0.014%, out of which readily available fresh water is now, for plants and animals, it is 0.001%, 0.0001%. For rivers, also 0.0001%. For lakes, 0.007%. For soil moisture, it's 0.005%. And for water vapor, it's 0.001%. So this is the actual amount ready for us to drink. So how shocking it is, right? So students, that was about the representation of water on the earth. So we know that only a small fraction of fresh water is readily available for use, so we should use it very wisely and judiciously too. Students think thus, if all the water on earth is represented by a 100-liter container, then the entire fresh water would amount to approximately 2.5 liters. and the available fresh water could then be held just in a teaspoon. So this is a very critical situation. Hence, all of us must make an effort to use water judiciously. Right? So now that we discussed about the importance of water, now let's get to the very important topic of water, and that is forms of water. Now we know very well that water exists in three states, that is solids, liquids and gases. And all the three states are reversible or interchangeable. So all the three states of water are present in our natural environment at any given time. So let us see what is actually meant by solid, liquid and gaseous state. Yes, students, here you can see a beautiful picture of the forms of water. Now the first picture which you can see here is that of ice. So what we can say about ice? Ice is the solid form of water. So water basically freezes to ice at 0 degrees Celsius. Here you can see water, which is a liquid form. So water remains liquid between 0 degrees Celsius and 100 degrees Celsius. And here you can see that steam or water vapor is the gaseous form of water. So water changes to steam or water vapor at 100 degrees Celsius. So basically there are three basic states of water: solid, liquid and gas. Right? So this is the most stable state of water. In a solid, all the particles are held together by intermolecular bonds, and they are held rigidly in fixed positions but vibrate randomly in their positions. So this state takes the least amount of heat energy to form, and solids have both fixed shapes because of the rigid molecular bonds and volume due to there being no space between each particle. And that is why ice is one just simple form, solid state of water. In a liquid, there is enough heat energy for the particle to break free of their bonds, but they are still held loosely together by intermolecular forces. So the particles in the liquid state may slide and roll over one another, but they may not drift away from each other. So liquids have no definite shape to the particle being freely absorbed, or they can roll and slide with each other, but very lessly. So water is the liquid state, right? Water is the gaseous form, liquid form. In a gas, the particles are most energetic, and they are spread far from each other, and they can freely go wherever they want. So there are no bonds holding them together, and this is why gases have no definite shape, because the particles can freely go wherever they want, and the definite volume, they do not have any definite volume, because since there are such large gaps or large spaces between particles, so they can be squeezed closer, and basically this gives water which changes into steam in the gaseous form. So in the gaseous form, when water changes, it forms steam, or we can say that water changes into steam. So this steam is a gaseous form, or water vapor is the gaseous form. So we can see solid in the form of glaciers, icebergs, as snow, hail and frost, and as ice crystals in the clouds. Then we can see liquid as rain, dew and clouds, which are formed of water droplets. Also, liquid water covers 3/4 of the surface of the earth in the form of lakes, rivers and oceans. And lastly, gaseous form as water vapor, fog, steam and clouds. So they are all gaseous form of water. So water exists in all the three states because water can change its state very easily in a range of temperature that is between 0 degrees Celsius and 100 degrees Celsius. And that is why we also say that they are interchangeable. Right? Means water can change into ice form, water can change into gaseous form, gaseous can change into water form, then water can, not water form, but into water, and water can be changed into ice. So basically we can say that all these three states, they mean solid, liquid and gaseous state, are interchangeable. Solid can convert into liquid, liquid into gas, gas into liquid, gas into solid and liquid to solid. So these can be changed. So basically this change also takes place on its own in our environment, forming a cycle which we know as the water cycle. So now we will study about the water cycle, which is a very important part of this lesson. Yes, students, water cycle. Now students, the continuous circulation of water in nature is called water cycle, and it is also known as hydrological cycle. So basically the water cycle, also known as hydrological cycle, is the journey of water which takes place as it circulates from the land to the sky and back again. And we know that the earth is covered by water. However, almost 97% is salt water found in the oceans and seas, and we cannot drink salt water, or we cannot use it for crops because of the salt content. But we can remove salt from ocean water, but that process is also very expensive. So we need to have this cycle, the water cycle, which is actually a natural cycle. We do not have to do anything. It is not man-made. So it is very good to balance the environment. So there are 6 important processes that make up water cycle. Let me write it down for you. Yes. 6 processes, namely condensation, infiltration, then runoff, also evaporation, precipitation, and transpiration. So students, you see that there are mainly 6 processes, but we are going to discuss 3 of them, and rest of the processes and the water cycle you will study in detail about water cycle in the higher grades. So students, here you can see the beautiful diagram or beautiful picture of the water cycle. Now basically what happens in condensation? We know very well that condensation is the opposite of evaporation. Condensation occurs when a gas is changed into a liquid. So water vapor basically condenses into millions of tiny droplets of water that form clouds in the sky. So what are clouds? Have you ever gave a thought that why are clouds white in color, or why do clouds float, and why do they turn gray So basically a cloud is composed of millions of little droplets of water or ice crystals when temperature is very low and when they are suspended in the air. So hence a cloud can form when water vapor becomes liquid. That is when the when the humid air is cooled and condenses on tiny particles. Right? So basically a cloud is a large collection of very tiny droplets of water or ice crystals, and the droplets are so small and light that they can float in the air. So basically all the clouds, all this contain water. All the air contains water, but near the ground it is usually in the form of an invisible gas called water vapor. So when warm air rises, it expands and cools, and cool air can't hold so much of water. It can't hold so much of water vapor, as warm air. So some of the vapor condenses into tiny pieces or droplets of dust that are floating in the air and forms tiny droplets around each dust particle. So when billions of these droplets come together, they become a visible cloud. Now you must be thinking that why are clouds white in color? Yes, they are because they reflect the light of the sun. Light is made up of colors of the rainbow, and when you add them all together, you get white. So the sun appears yellow in color because it gives out more yellow light than any other color. Similarly, clouds reflect all the colors in the exact same amount, so they look white in color. Now clouds are made up of tiny water droplets or ice crystals, usually a mixture of both, right? So the water and ice, it scatters all light, making clouds appear white, and all the clouds get thick enough or high enough so that all the light above does not make it through. Hence the gray or dark color of the cloud appears. Also, if there are lots of other clouds around their shadow, they can also add to the gray or multicolored gray appearance of the clouds. And with extreme weather, survival kits are very necessary for our family. So we need to take precautions too, right? During typhoon or Katrina or a storm. So a cloud is made up of water droplets, and a cloud forms when air is heated by the sun, and as it rises, it slowly cools down, and it forms, or it reaches a point where water condenses, forming clouds. So as long as the cloud in the air that is made of its warmer than the outside air around it, it floats. And clouds also move with the wind, right? There are clouds, they are pushed along by the jet stream, sometimes traveling at more than 100 miles per hour. So when clouds are part of the thunderstorm, they usually travel at 30 to 40 miles per hour. Now, the characteristics of clouds are actually, they are consisting of the elements available in it, including the amount of water vapor, the temperature at that height, the wind, and the water play of other air masses. So it all depends upon it. So basically, condensation is this process where water vapor condenses into millions of tiny droplets that form clouds in the sky. And now I think I've made myself clear with the topic of these clouds with which this condensation process is possible. Right? After that comes the infiltration, which is an important process when rainwater soaks into the ground through the soil and underlying rock layers, and then much of the water that returns to the earth as precipitation runs off the surface of the land and flows downhill into the streams, rivers, ponds and lakes. But what is actually precipitation? How this precipitation occurs by which much of the water returns to the earth, right? So in precipitation process, the millions of tiny droplets collide with one another to form larger droplets which fall down as rain or snow when they become too heavy. So this is called precipitation. When the temperature and atmospheric pressure are right, the small droplets of water in the clouds form larger droplets and precipitation occurs, and then the raindrops fall to earth. So in this way we can say that much of the water returns to the earth as precipitation runs off the surface of the land. Right? After that comes the evaporation. Now evaporation, we know that it is the process where a liquid, in this case water, changes from its liquid state to the gaseous state. So water from oceans, lakes and rivers evaporate under the heat of sun. Even as plants absorb water from the soil, the water moves from the roots through the stem to the leaves by the process of transpiration. And once the water reaches the leaves, some of it evaporates from the leaves too, adding to the amount of water vapor in the air. So this process of evaporation through plant leaves also adds to the process of this evaporation, in which water from oceans, lakes and rivers also evaporate under the heat of sun. So students, it's like that this water cycle works in this way, and in this way condensation, precipitation, evaporation process goes on and on and on. So this process of water goes on, and that is why it is called as water cycle, because it never stops as it balances the environment, right? So that was all about the water cycle, and we are through with our session 1. In the next session we will discuss more about the importance of water. So I hope you liked today's session. We'll meet in the next session with some points on the importance of water and what are the uses of water, right? So see you in the next session. Don't miss it. Till then, have a nice time and goodbye.